Welcome. This is the Unconventional Ministry Podcast, where the conversation is about fresh ideas in ministry, innovative approaches, and collaborative efforts. I'm your host, Dennis Weens, Vice President for Ministry Partnerships at Sat7 USA. And my guest today is David Wilson, Director of Church Relations at Avant Ministry. So, David, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks, Dennis. Thanks for having me on.
You know, you connect with churches a lot. You spend a lot of time in the mission community. And so as we look back at COVID, do you see some changes from COVID now, pre-COVID to post-COVID? What are you seeing in the mission community that stands out to you?
Yeah, it's kind of hard to say that we're in a post-COVID world because everyone's still getting sick and reporting in. So we're kind of changing a lot of ways that we do things, how we interact with people, but still the mission is the same, is to build relationships with folks, find out what God is doing in their lives and where he's calling them to go. But yeah, after COVID, I think that most people have reprioritized their lives in a lot of ways. So, you know, before we would mobilize people who are in that 20-year range, 18 to 28-year-old would be kind of our normal prospect for candidates. Mm-hmm. But we're noticing that age range right now is not necessarily wanting to submit the rest of their lives to full-time ministry service. They want to kind of test the waters a little bit. I think that's just kind of a reprioritization in that younger category. But they are willing to go on short-term trips. You know, we can do things for 18 months to 2 years, put them in a place, let them experiment with it a little bit, and then come back to us and let us know how they're doing.
Very good. And you've written several books on mobilization and missions. I know one is Minding the Gaps. Another one, we did a Facebook Live one time about pipeline. You've written several others, and you have a blog as well. And so people have a lot of resources there if you want to tap into what Dave is doing. How do you see the type of ministry personnel you were looking for before COVID maybe, and are you still looking for the same type of personnel to mobilize now?
Yeah, so our church, our organization as Avant Ministries is a church planting organization. So we look for people who want to go abroad to some of the unreached areas of the world to plant the church where the church currently doesn't exist. So, and like I was saying before, you know, these folks who are in their 20s aren't willing to go full time, and it's hard to plant a church with just a few years of their service. Right. So the type of people that we're looking for right now have longer ministry experience, people who've been in the local church serving for a period of time. Maybe they have another job. Their education is something like media or, the different things that people go to school for in a secular setting. They can actually use that in church planting among those unreached areas of the world to get into the place, like as a platform in order to work and live in another country. And they can do church planting during their downtime. So that's the kind of people we're looking for, is people who can go overseas for another purpose, but then do church planting while they're in those other overseas areas.
I know a lot of countries now have a national church. The indigenous church around the world is growing, and they become missionary sending agencies themselves. Right. So a person going into missions now might use their specialty to help strengthen and empower that local church rather than, I know I'm a third-generation missionary. My folks and that generation were pioneers and were starting the church, where now missions is more coming alongside the church that's already there and strengthening, empowering, teaching, training them. And I read a statistic that 22% of Christians reside in the northern hemisphere, 78 live in the global south. And, you know, we think of the global south as a place where we're sending personnel, but they're starting to send personnel back to the northern hemisphere. So there's been a paradigm shift a little bit in the whole mission movement.
Yes, absolutely. And Yeah, Avant just merged with another organization, Camino Global. We were partnering with them on a lot of things, but now we're merged and we're together as one. And they have, over the years, 100 or more years, specialized in mobilizing people from Central and South America. The Spanish-speaking nations are sending out missionaries in record numbers. So we as an agency are working with folks from the Global South church to go into some very hard to reach places around the world. And it's really exciting to see that happen, but it's also uh, as a mission agency, we've learned things throughout the years that those folks haven't experienced yet. So we are in the business right now of sharing our experience over the last 100 or so years with people who are brand new to being sent out. So we're really excited about what the Lord is doing in that, but it's also a time for us to invest deeply in other ways.
Your title is Director of Church Relations. Talk to us a little bit about what all's involved in your position in building that relationship with the local church.
Yeah, so the Avant really felt strongly that they needed somebody that would speak the language of the church. And I was a missions pastor for more than 20 years before I came to this position. And so just developing relationships with churches, helping them create strategies for mobilizing their next generation that they're going to be sending out, giving them skills to be able to care for those who are being sent out. So that's why we wrote a couple of our books, just to give some resources for churches who would like to send well, who would like to be able to care for their people, and who want to make a difference in the world through the people that they sent out on mission field.
So, what is your website? I know a lot of those resources are on one of your websites. What is that website? And talk to us a little bit then about your book, Pipeline.
Yeah, so our website is Three Strand Partners. That's my wife and I, Lorene Wilson and Dave. We put together threestrandpartners.org. And that's where you can go to get downloadable resources. We've got books for sale there, but also presentations. Our blog is on there. We've got lots of just free resources for churches to download. And so we provide that as a resource. We're also able to go and speak to churches who want to partner more deeply.
And I'll put those resources in the notes for this episode, so you'll have a hyperlink to that website as well. What's the Minding the Gap book about?
Yeah, so Mind the Gaps is our way of helping a church go through the process of caring well, going from caring about missionaries to caring for missionaries with intentionality and proactive. And so as we're with my last church as a missions pastor, we got together as a team, formed a lot of really innovative strategies to care for those that we sent out. And we put it all in the book. We were going to title it, our experience so far caring with missionaries, but that was just too bulky. So Mind the Gaps was kind of our way of settling what we do.
So you're with Avant Ministries, based in Kansas City, and their church planning ministry, historically very strong on church planning. Talk to us a little bit about their church planning, some of the models they're using.
Yeah, so we have this Avant Church Planting Principles, and it's a metrics. We're able to find out in the process where the church is as people are going. What's the difference between a small group Bible study or a group of people that get together, and where is the line that they cross to actually being a fully fledged church with leadership, with strategies, with all kind of outcomes-based church planting models that we have. It's very exciting because sometimes a church that's been a church for the last 100 years could actually take our metrics and find out how successful are they as a church. And it's kind of neat to be able to see that resource used as both church planting, but also church health and the other side.
I know I'm with SAT7, which is a Middle East broadcast media ministry, and the mission statement is to see a growing church confident in its faith and in its witness and contributing to its culture and to its society. And a lot of people are think that being in the Middle East, you can't have that vision of seeing a growing church, that you must be, clandestine, underground. But we're a broadcaster where we put the logo on our buildings. We're not underground at all. And we want to contribute to the culture and to the society across the Middle East and North Africa. So we want to see the church grow. And part of growth is to be obedient to Scripture and the Great Commission, and to be a witnessing church. And even in hostile environments, the greatest witness is just to live your faith.
Right.
And I know I've heard stories like in Iraq and Syria, people begin their faith journey by seeing the joy on people's face on a television program televising a church service.
Oh.
And they didn't understand the words necessarily, or the hymns, but they saw this visual of content and hope, and that's what drew them in, and they wanted what that person had. And so it's amazing to see how God is using various models to build his church around the world. Well, how can people learn more about Avant Ministries?
Our website is avantministries.org, and you can see a lot of our history there, a lot of the things that we're doing in the global South, as well as in places that are least reached. So avantministries.org, and you can give me a call anytime. My phone number is on that website, so let me know how I can serve.
Well, Dave, it's great to have you on the podcast and talk a little bit about the church. I appreciate you taking time out of a busy schedule. And I encourage our listeners to invite Dave to come to their church. Also, purchase some of your books. What are your books again, just so people can look them up on Amazon or get on your website maybe?
Yeah, Mind the Gaps is church missionary care. Pipeline is the church, engaging the church in missionary mobilization. And Transforming Missionaries is our book that helps with short-term mission trip planning.
Very good. Again, thank you for being our guest on the Unconventional Ministry podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
In our changing world, there are more ways than ever to do ministry. Sat7 as a broadcast media ministry is changing how ministry is done. Through innovative approaches, collaborative efforts, broadcast satellite television, web streaming, and social media, Sat7 is making a difference. Visit Sat7 online today at sat7usa.org to learn ways you can be a part of this kingdom work. If you've enjoyed this conversation, please share it with your friends. If you know of an unconventional ministry approach, please introduce us. We'd like to have them on as guests. Thank you again for joining this episode of the Unconventional Ministry podcast.